Good evening, everyone. Good evening, friends of the Frederik van Zyl Slabbert Institute. Can we just give one final round of applause to our artist, Chelsea Aries, for the amazing way into segueing a very, very special evening tonight. I'm Heidi October. I'm the head of the Institute and also the Deputy Director at the Center for Student Life and Learning for Leadership. And it really gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to the 14th Annual Frederik van Zyl Slabbert Honorary Lecture. So on behalf of the Responsibility Center for the Dean of Students and our Center for Student Life and Learning, a very, very warm welcome to a very special evening. Tonight, we are celebrating 15 years of student leadership excellence in South Africa. It's a milestone year for the Institute. So this lecture, as always, is supported financially by the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, and it provides a platform for engaging conversations on current South African democracy, governance, and citizenship matters. And what better way to celebrate this during the Human Rights Month in South Africa. So a kind reminder, especially for the work of the late Dr. Frederik van Zyl Slabbert. This evening, the celebration is twofold. We're celebrating student leadership excellence through the work that we do globally, nationally, with all our higher education partners, but we also honor the legacy of a great South African thought leader who played a significant role in the democracy of our country. And today, 15 years later, since the launch of the Institute right here at Steers in 2011, we are really proud and honored to say that we are working very hard in expanding that leadership footprint that he left for us here at Stellenbosch University in South Africa, but beyond the borders of our country, all the way to Dakar and back. Our Rector and Vice-Chancellor, Professor Deresh Ramjiganath, will ensure that we follow protocol and that all is observed. But please do allow me to acknowledge the wonderful people in the room and also joining us from different countries online. Our university's management team, our speaker, Prof. Benang Mohali, the children of the late Dr. van Zyl Slabbert, Tanya and Rico, our sponsor, the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, A. Bailey trustees, alumni, scholars, students, media, and members of the public who have traveled from various provinces to attend this 14th annual honorary lecture. I do want to make a special mention to the students from the Walter Sisulu University all the way from Tata, if you can just give a hand. We traveled all the way to attend tonight's honorary lecture and tomorrow's night's 3-hour class on leadership theory with me. So I hope that you're ready for that. Enjoy your evening tonight. I also want to do a special acknowledgement tonight to one of our former DVC's Learning and Teaching, Professor Magda Fourie. She was the DVC at the time that the Institute was launched, and I know that this Institute is very, very dear to her heart, so very warm welcome to you as well. And on that note, it really gives me great pleasure to welcome my co-program director, the 2025 A. Bailey Fellow for Stellenbosch University, and also one of our FVZS student leadership ambassadors, Liam Gillison. So Liam, over to you. My work is almost done.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. October. As mentioned, my name is Liam Gillison. It's a little bit odd for me to be standing on this side of the podium. I've spent the last 4 years in the audience, but nonetheless, I'm really excited to be your MC this evening. What's so exciting about these lectures is that it really gives you an opportunity to open your mind and think of things from a different perspective, even if some of the thoughts are a little bit thought-provoking and challenging. To start the evening, I would like to welcome our Rector and Vice-Chancellor, Prof. Duresh Ranjuganath, to give the opening remarks. I remember clearly when he was appointed as Rector and Vice-Chancellor, and there were many students who kind of hailed him as the Rector for all students, and I think that's definitely true. Despite his busy schedule, he makes a lot of time to invest and engage in students and student leadership, and tonight is an example of that. Prof, it is a pleasure to have you here tonight, and I welcome you to the stage to set the scene for the evening.
Liam, thank you very much for that introduction, and also to Dr. Heidi October, our co-program director. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to our distinguished guests. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to extend a special welcome to Professor Bonang Mohale, who we are deeply honored to host this evening, and we really look forward to the presentation that you will give. As has been mentioned, we also got some special guests, Professor Magda Fourie Mahalba, who played a very important role in the founding of the Frederick van Zyl-Slabbert Institute, and also being a former Deputy Vice-Chancellor and Vice-Rector for Learning and Teaching at the institution. We indeed have the privilege of having Tanya and Rico Slabbert with us. It's good to see you in person. I know last year that you had joined us online, and your presence here tonight honors the legacy of your father, Dr. Frederick van Zyl-Slabbert. Mr. Chris Andrus from the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, and Professor L.T. Links representing the A. Bailey Foundation. A special welcome to every single one of you, as well as to members of our rectorate and the management and leadership at Stellenbosch University, to our student leaders, our alumni, our colleagues, our partners in higher education, and a special word of welcome to our colleagues and our students from Walter Sisulu University. I'm glad to say that I spent a bit of time with your Vice-Chancellor yesterday, and I know she's looking forward to her inauguration in a few weeks' time. So good evening everyone once again, and welcome to Stellenbosch University and to this special venue which is STIAS. Tonight we're here for two important reasons: to celebrate 15 years of the Frederick van Zyl-Slabbert Institute and to engage in the annual honorary lecture, a space that has over time become one of the university's most important platforms for reflection on democracy, leadership, and public life. Tonight's theme is, in times of socio-political turbulence, how can the Constitution still anchor our democracy and inspire citizen leadership? And it could not be more timely, given everything that's taking place in the world at the moment. It speaks to the tension we all recognize. The global threat to democracy is hard to ignore. But when we turn our attention closer to home, we are a country rich in constitutional promise, yet still grappling with lived realities that do not always reflect that promise. Dr. Frederick van Zyl-Slabbert understood this tension deeply. He was not only a political thinker, but a bridge builder, someone who believed that dialogue, courage, and principled leadership could reshape society. His role in the Dakar talks remains a defining moment in our journey towards democracy as a country. The institute that bears his name continues that legacy, not as a monument to the past, but as a living, evolving space for leadership development. Over the past 15 years, the Frederick van Zyl-Slabbert Institute has grown into a platform that connects students, scholars, and global partners in meaningful engagement including its growing international footprint and its role in convening conversations across Africa and beyond, globally. I think it was just a few years ago that we hosted an international event in which we had many representatives from around the world. And importantly, it remains grounded in a simple but powerful idea that leadership is not a title, but a responsibility. At Stellenbosch University, this idea resonates deeply with our own vision as an institution. We speak often about being rooted in Africa, but global in the reach that we want to have as an institution. But what gives that phrase meaning is not strategy alone. It is people. It is the student leader who chooses integrity over convenience. It is the academic who speaks truth in difficult times. It is the citizen who insists that the Constitution is not an abstract document, but a lived commitment. There is a quote by the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu that feels particularly apt this evening, and I quote, "We are made for goodness. We are made for love. We are made for friendliness. We are made for togetherness." And perhaps we can add to that, we are also made for responsibility and accountability. Because constitutions do not sustain democracies on their own. People do. I am particularly encouraged by the presence of our students here tonight, including those who have participated in the Frederick van Zyl Slabbert programs and those joining us from across the country. You are not only the future of this democracy that we have in this country, but by your participation in these various initiatives, you are also helping to shape the democracy of this country. This evening's lecture will be delivered by someone who embodies many of the ideals. Professor Bonang Mohale is widely recognized as a leader of principle, a champion of ethical leadership, and someone who has consistently advocated for inclusive economic and social transformation. His work spans business, higher education, and public life. And importantly, he has remained committed to the idea that leadership must serve society. And we at Stellenbosch University identify with that 100%. In our vision statement, last 4 words of our vision statement, in service of society. Everything that we do as an organization ultimately must be in service of society. Before I conclude, let me also acknowledge the role of our partners, particularly the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, whose continued support enables this lecture to reach far beyond this room. And to the team at the Frederick van Zyl Slabbert Institute, thank you for the 15 years of remarkable work in shaping leaders who are thoughtful, who are courageous, but importantly, become engaged citizens. In closing, if the past decade and our current times have taught us anything, it is that democracies are not static. They require constant renewal. And that renewal begins not in institutions alone, but it begins in the individual. In how we lead, in how we listen, and in how we act. It is therefore my great pleasure to welcome you to this year's Frederick van Zyl-Slabbert Honorary Lecture and to invite all of us into what promises to be a rich and important conversation. Professor Mohale, we look forward to your insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Deresh. It's always such a pleasure listening to our rector giving the contextualization of the purpose of the Frederick van Zyl-Slabbert Institute and why we are honoring the legacy of the late Dr. Frederick van Zyl-Slabbert. One aspect of what you have mentioned right now is service in service of society, and that really speaks to, in academia, how we are all always encouraged to ensure that we keep the academic project as the main focus area of our university and for our students in terms of student success. But equally important also to ensure that the work that we do remains relevant in South Africa and broader beyond the borders of the South African context. So thank you very much, Prof, for always supporting citizen leadership and the approach that we have at the Institute in terms of relational leadership. Now, I know that some of you have observed that it was a bit of a struggle for me to get our honorary speaker to get a seat. And I think in the short time that I've engaged with him, his engagement style, his behavior, his casual approach, his easygoing way just to relate to just about anyone really speaks to the kind of person that he is. So when I do read his bio this evening, I think you will all agree with me that even this shortened version of his bio really speaks to why he received so many awards. So allow me, and I hope that I will do justice to his biography. So Professor Mohale is the Chancellor of the University of the Free State, former President of Business Unity South Africa, and Professor of Practice at the Johannesburg Business School in the Faculty of Business and Economics. He serves as chair of 2 listed companies, the Bidvest Group Limited and ArcelorMittal, as well as Swiss Re Corporate Solutions Africa, and SBV Services. He was appointed Sherpa of the Values 20, a global community of values-driven experts and practitioners that engages meaningfully with the Group of 20, also known as the G20, launched in 2020 during Saudi Arabia's G20 presidency. He's a member of the World Economic Forum's community of chairpersons and the best-selling author of Lift As You Rise, Behold the Turtle, and Coming In From the Cold, his autobiography. 15 attendees tonight will be the lucky winner of one of these books. Among his many industry awards are the following. In 2025, the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants Chairpersons, Friends of the Profession, and recognizing his lasting contribution to the profession and his continued commitment to purpose-driven leadership. Also in 2025, the Epitome of Black Excellence Award, presented in participation with the United Nations in recognition of the significant contribution to economic development in South Africa and beyond. 2024, Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology, Special Presidential Business Leadership Award, the African Union's Lifetime Award in 2024, the Presidential Award in 2001 for servanthood in the South African industry and the economic empowerment of previously disadvantaged individuals. In addition to all of these, he was included in the Reputation Poll International's 2023 list of the 100 most reputable Africans, and the selection criteria for that includes integrity, reputation, transparency, visibility, and impact. Please join me in welcoming Professor Bonang Mohale to deliver the 14th Annual Frederick van Zyl-Slabbert Lecture.
So to Tina, Rika, and the extended family of Dr. Frederick van Zyl Slabbert, Eminence, Excellencies, most distinguished guests. It's probably poignant that we are having this Dr. Frederick van Zyl Slabbert honorary lecture at a time that the world, amongst others, is gripped by no less than 4 wars: Sudan, Gaza, Ukraine, and Iran, where the notion that might is right is being normalized, and yet it is clear to all that these wars will not determine what is right, but what is left. It is the most Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who reminds us that the richer we have become materially, the poorer we have become morally and spiritually. We have learned to fly in the air like birds and swim in the sea like fish, but we have not yet learned the simple art of living together as brothers. But also at a time where stability is under siege, uncertainty continues to spiral in scale, interconnectivity, and velocity, where cooperative mechanisms crumble, with governments retreating from multilateral frameworks, where cyber insecurity is precipitated by adverse outcomes of generative AI technologies, and societal polarization and erosion of human rights is everywhere. A contested, multipolar landscape is emerging where confrontation is replacing both collaboration and cooperation, and trust is losing its value. At a time that for many decades, every major country has always had a plan for Africa. And yet, sadly, Africa did not have a plan for any other country, nor for herself. This narrative has now fundamentally changed from what does the world need from Africa to a world where we can ask, what does Africa need from the world? On her own terms. We are witnessing fundamental structural shifts that are redefining Africa's global role, driven by, amongst others, continental integration through the Africa Continental Trade Agreement, and most importantly, financial reform. It's a multipolar transition that is reshaping trade and diplomacy. An Africa where critical minerals are moving from just extraction to strategic leverage, where a demographic dividend is driving global workforce growth and integrated energy that is altering, amongst others, security and investment dynamics. Africa is the world's second largest continent, covering approximately 30.7 million square kilometers. She makes up roughly 20% of the Earth's total land area. It is the world's second most populous continent at over 1.5 billion people as at 2026, but only 3% of the global air traffic. With a worst safety record and lowest margins. It is 30% of the world's critical mineral reserves. For instance, the Democratic Republic of Congo produces more than half of the global cobalt. This is the stuff that the world needs for the manufacture of electric vehicles and the batteries that power them. Demand for lithium is projected to increase 5-fold by 2040. But this is no longer just about extraction. Across the continent, governments are shifting from volume to value, from raw materials to building battery capacity, and from shipping ore to negotiating technology transfer, negotiating equity stakes, negotiating local processing. Critical minerals are becoming leverage in a more competitive multipolar world. It is becoming abundantly clear that global energy transition will not happen without Africa. The question is no longer who can access Africa's resources, but who can build credible long-term partnerships aligned with African priorities to reimagine investment decisions, capital flows, supply chains, policy frameworks, and where business as usual will simply not work anymore. Here at home, we are emboldened by some green shoots. With private sector participation, load shedding seems to be a thing of the past. On our journey towards a much more stable, reliable, and predictable energy supply, logistics is receiving urgent attention. We are being propelled by a $5,000 gold price, constrained by $120 per barrel oil price. New vehicle sales are up by 22%, driven mostly by Chinese and Indian cars. We have finally come out of the FATF grey listing. S&P has just upgraded us with a positive outlook. Business confidence is improving. Structural reforms are stuttering. There's some modicum of economic stabilization, renewed growth, albeit pedestrian, having just recorded now 5 consecutive quarters of GDP growth. We have achieved 2 primary budget surpluses. We have seen inflation fall to its lowest level in 2 decades. The rand has strengthened, driven mainly by the weakening dollar. Borrowing costs have declined and investor confidence again is improving. Water, unfortunately, is now the new Eskom. The past still casts a long shadow, and we'll always remember Dr. Frederick van Zyl Slabbert for his epic contribution and for having played a pivotal role, and a defining one at that, amongst others, in our constitution, our democracy, and in engaged citizenship. The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, 1996, was approved by the Constitutional Court on the 4th of December, 1996, and took effect on the 4th of February, 1997. It is the supreme law of the land. No other law or government action can supersede the provisions of the Constitution. It is one of the most progressive in the world and enjoys high acclaim internationally. Constitutions can establish and regulate the political institutions of the community, defining the various institutions of government, prescribing their composition, their powers and functions, regulating the relations between them. His tireless efforts translated in helping to define, amongst others, what role can a free South Africa play in charting forward a model of collective problem solving that is meaningful and robust. He assisted in reaffirming the merits of dialogue, of partnership and collaboration grounded in shared value. How civil society and government work together to strengthen collective action, global norms, and therefore foster trust. We now fully understand that the value of a country, and indeed its values, are not to be measured by its constitution, but by its budget. That developed countries are not those where the poor can afford to buy cars, but where the rich opt to use public transport. Because where there is no hope in the future, there is no power in the present. I think Karl Popper was a preeminent 20th century Austrian-British philosopher of science and social thinker, best known for establishing falsifiability as a key criterion for scientific theories, and opined that democracy should not be understood as electing the best. This notion called the rule of the people, but rather as a system to prevent tyranny by providing a peaceful mechanism to remove bad leaders. Pretty much the same way that Sir Robert Marks, Commissioner of the London Metropolitan Police in the 70s, submitted that the basic test of a decent police force is to ensure that you arrest more criminals than you employ. The goal is to provide a safety valve to get rid of governments and civil servants that have become corrupt, incompetent, or abusive, rather than a guarantee to elect a perfect one. Bad leaders, and therefore bad governments, are elected by good citizens who do not vote, or when they fall for both disinformation and misinformation. Democracy is seen as the best mode of error correction, allowing citizens to reject leaders who fail, thus enabling the system to evolve. This view acknowledges that voter decision-making is often flawed due to cognitive biases, emotions, and incomplete information. Therefore, democracy is viewed as a functional, pragmatic solution to prevent the worst outcomes, rather than a system designed to guarantee the best outcomes. The system works by establishing checks and balances, such as the rule of law, free press, and the independent judiciary, that allows citizens to restrain leaders even while they're in power. The fundamental value of democracy is that it allows for the substitution of leadership without violent overthrow. The system only functions effectively if the citizenry is engaged. Strong democratic systems characterized by institutional integrity tend to push out bad leaders, whereas weak systems crumble regardless of the leader. Liberal democracy is defined by the 4 pillars, of course, free press, independent civil society, constitutional democracy, but most importantly by the rule of law. It's premised on producing institutions that are honest and fair, grounded in excellence, evidence, and science. The Sustainable Development Goal number 1 of 17, established by the United Nations in 2015, calls for the end of poverty in all its forms. All the social partners, government, labor, civil society, and business, because I'm in a place of learning, academia, they play a pivotal role in regularly providing an honest reflection about the challenges that are still confronting us as a nation, and both implores and mandates you and I to be intentional in fixing this, thereby rewriting the inherent and systemic shortcomings plaguing our global competitiveness and ability to serve honestly without taking from the people. Precisely because this is not consonant with the intent of our Constitution, especially today when state capture, corruption, bribery, and stealing and cheating have been given a black face. when it is the black firms that are victims of state capture, and it is black government officials that extort other black firms. Today we are a colony of a different kind, still mindfully tending to painful wounds 32 years into democracy. The haunting words of Bantu Steve Biko ring truer today than in any other time in the history of Africa's liberation journey. That the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Isn't it tragic that most black people, when confronted with an oppressive system, instead of changing it, they would rather improve their own position in it, instead of doing everything they can to ensure that their own people become everything that they can be? It's Mlauli Julius Nyerere who reiterates this fact that independence cannot be real if a nation depends upon gifts. Once you give someone the power, you also give them the power to starve you. Let us learn to grind our own meal and kill the dependency syndrome. Let us rely on creating systems for ourselves. Stop begging for food, aid, and money from world powers, especially because Africa is not a poor continent, just poorly managed. This year, being the 50th anniversary of both the Soweto uprisings in June of 1976, but also the creation of the Black Management Forum in April of the same year. We must redouble our efforts to focus on the development of managerial leadership and the creation of managerial structures that are broadly reflective of the demographics and values of the broader South African society, advocating for socio-economic transformation of our country through the pursuit of justice, fairness, and equity. Engaged citizenship is rooted in empathy, responsibility, and through respectful discourse. Engaged citizens take an active role in civic life, pursuing meaningful service to enhance local communities, an inclusive and equitable society at large, to foster positive change, again, more accountability and social cohesion. It goes beyond voting to include volunteering, attending public meetings, and addressing local issues. It strengthens democracy by making institutions much more transparent and responsive, by working towards a society where everyone is respected and free. Some of the benefits of active citizenship and participation include, amongst others, increasing the legitimacy of policy decisions, building public trust, especially in local government and in public institutions, more effective policy development and building stronger communities, clarity, consistency, and correction, as well as personal, close, intimate connection are foundational principles that empower patriotic, non-profit organizations and associations to foster meaningful relationships and drive impactful engagement with the broader stakeholder community, not just the shareholders. The primary reason why inclusive leadership will trump racism every single time is that it absolutely thrives on the collective thought processes of many more diverse people. It also must be undergirded by putting our best foot forward and aspiring to be led by the absolute best. Singapore's strategy is premised on meritocracy, over and above pragmatism and honesty. The Chinese leadership consists only of the best and most experienced. That is why they're winning the global economic, and one might add, the trade war. When one strips it bare, it demonstrates beyond any shadow of doubt that competency is worth more than popular opinion. That guided collective intelligence is much more effective than the illusion of freedom. That stability is better than democratic chaos, and that elites are not a threat, but a necessity, especially when managed well. There's no doubt that long-term construction requires avoiding impulsive changes in direction, especially from the same political party. Inclusive leadership is a clarion call to dedicate all of us to a life of dignity, of social justice, of democracy, of peace and reconciliation for all, not just for elected officials. Because no force is mighty enough to defeat a determined spirit. That the struggle is not waged on terrain chosen, and that a united few will always defeat a divided majority. I'm in a place of education. So education is indeed the passport for both today and to the future. For tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. At its core, engaged citizenship asks students in particular to exercise critical thought, to look beyond themselves, learn to value service, to honor diverse perspectives, and contribute meaningfully to the world around them. It is the act of giving and receiving valuable information, the process of gaining knowledge and skills, inculcating forms of proper conduct, and acquiring technical competency. It is the cultivation of an innocent mind, the instilling of values and principles, especially in the minds of the youth, to bring about physical, mental, and social development of an individual, of a community, of a society, of a country. It leads to advanced knowledge and improves one's life choices by providing important experiences. It prepares individuals to lead productive and fulfilling lives that drive economic growth and innovation. To advance this notion of social equality, of justice and creativity. Of course, literacy is key to expanding knowledge and gaining the ability to self-express. Education is an important instrument that empowers individuals to break free from unfortunate situations, as well as challenge stereotypes they may be faced with. It offers freedom to individuals trying to escape adverse conditions like poverty, like slavery, like incarceration. Technology and automation are fast taking over the world and the work environment, including the education landscape. Institutions of higher learning must remain attentive to these shifting currents in a rapidly digitizing world where generative artificial intelligence, technological disruption, and the demand for lifelong learning are redefining the concept of work. The role of a university is to prepare graduates not just for jobs, but for active, thoughtful, and adaptable citizenship, to embrace flexible learning models, integrated digital platforms, and promote interdisciplinary research to ensure that students are not passive recipients and consumers of knowledge, but active participants in describing, defining, and shaping the future, to remain unwavering in its commitment, again, to social justice, again, to transformation, and again, to meaningful access. To recognize that relevance in this era demands both global engagement and local responsiveness, from addressing hunger, student period poverty, and mental health, to pioneering research that tackles pressing societal challenges. Not just PhD in and of itself, but PhD to solve our current problems. Steadfast in the pursuit of inclusive academic excellence, collaborative in the approach to solving country problems, and visionary in preparing students in the complexities of the world, they will inherit, because they're much more invested in tomorrow than I am. In short, demonstrate a firm belief in the power of higher education to transform lives and societies, committed to providing the country with conscientious leaders, economic growth and prosperity. One of my favorite writers, African writers series, is Ngungi wa Thiong'o and Chinua Achebe. So 28 May 2025, before he died, this Kenyan author and academic, one of Africa's leading novelists, an African, a revolutionary, and an internationalist, who bravely opined that our lives are a battlefield on which is fought a continuous war between the forces that are pledged to confirm our humanity and those determined to dismantle it. Those who strive to build a protective wall around it, and those who wish to pull it down, those who seek to mold it, and those who are committed to breaking it up, those who aim to open our eyes, to make us see the light and look to tomorrow, and those who wish to lull us into closing our eyes. I'm a good Catholic boy. I still remember the instructions as written by Isaiah 1:17 that learn to do right, seek justice. Defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, and plead the case of the widow. Because being poor is not just about lacking money. It means paying more for less, working harder for fewer opportunities, and constantly trying to survive, not thrive. You see, the brutality of the self-perpetuating vicious cycle of abject poverty comes with a price that people who have not lived it will never fully understand. Often the weight of that unseen cost is carried in silence, behind brave faces and tired eyes. This is the era of purpose-led leaders, those who rise with conviction, build with vision, and transform broken systems through compassion and courage. Leaders rooted in justice, driven by innovation. They are reimagining what leadership truly means, because not every leader wears a cape, has a title, or speaks from a stage, but every purpose-driven life stands on a platform. Influence is sacred and must be used to dwell among the people and shape the world with love, with truth, and innovation. Where to be trusted is a greater compliment than being loved. You see, everybody has a choice, unless you're a victim, poor, and nowhere to go.
Prof, that was a really exceptional speech, and I think one of the undertones was intentionality and being purpose-led. And thank you for crafting a speech that was very intentional, especially for the time that we find ourselves in. I must just ask you, when are you going to run for president?
President of business, yes.
No, this country needs you now. I think there are so many things that stuck out to me. Number one is that Africa doesn't always have to be the underdog, that we're a rich country with awesome people, and that we can take our place in the sun. We just need to make sure that we have an effective police force, that we have education, that corruption's rooted out. I think what's also important is that just because we suddenly have a democracy doesn't mean that we've escaped apartheid or colonialism and that people are free. We need other rights that come with democratic rights, rights of housing, education, socioeconomic rights, etc., etc. To further unpack Prof. Bonang's address, I welcome Unapachido Mbayiwa, the Citizen Engagement Coordinator of the FVZS, who will facilitate the Q&A this evening. To work with Nopi is an absolute pleasure. She's one of those big thinkers that asks amazing questions, which you'll see now, and I really look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
All right, everyone, can we just please clap for Prof again? And I'm also going to ask us to clap for the audience because everyone looks so good tonight, right? I'm even going to use big English. Everyone looks impeccable tonight. Wow. So earlier today, I had the privilege of actually having a conversation with Prof for our FVZS Unplugged podcast. And there was a lot that we spoke about. And I just want to encourage you that at the end of this, on the 6th of May, we're going to be releasing that podcast in case you wanted to hear more about what Prof has to share. Now, how this is going to work, guys, is I'm going to be a little bit selfish, and I'm just going to ask the first 2 questions to get us started. Thereafter, I have 3 of my colleagues. I don't know where you are, if you can raise your hand. Okay, there are my colleagues at the back. We've got Matthew, Aiden, and Tolu, who are then going to be roaming the mics around for any questions. So I'd like to encourage you, this is your time to ask questions. Now, Prof, you know that I ask hard questions, right? Always, I know. So what you said is, you were speaking about how, and let me quote you properly, that there is no hope in the future if there's no power in the present. And I want to ask us to be quite critical. 32 years in democracy, South Africa is still grappling with, the struggle against apartheid, with a constitution that serves as the highest law protecting citizens. Yet today there remains, I don't know if you want to call it a gap or tension, between the promises of the Constitution and the lived realities of many South Africans. I mean, we have issues of femicide. We have issues of majority of South Africa's population not even having access to their own land, which you spoke about earlier. And I want to understand from your perspective, what are your reflections on this tension, and what does it reveal about our progress as a society?
That's a number of questions. It's unfair. But 32 years into democracy, maybe 3 things. One is no longer a teenager at 32. You're approaching 40. So, of course, you choose only to be with the people that you want to be with, and you choose to do only the things that you want to do. But most importantly, this triumvirate of things for me become important. Number 1, time must feel much tighter. 2, relationships, not things, must become much more important. And then lastly, the big questions must become personal. And the big questions that are personal for me is, how is it that 32 years into democracy that all the cashiers, the petrol attendants, and the waitrons are still black? That 32 years into democracy, poverty still has primarily a black, a feminine, and rural face. Put differently, that if this thing called wealth is the inevitable outcome of both hard work and enterprise, then every woman in Africa should be a $1 billionaire.
Wow. Wow. I don't even have English to explain what I'm experiencing right now. But so I then want to continue and speak about how South Africa continues, we've said, to grapple with legacies of apartheid. You've mentioned economic disparities, you've mentioned social inequality, we have corruption, we have ongoing racial and class tensions. And I want to understand from you, Prof, how do you see the Constitution in playing a role in advancing reconciliation and social cohesion? And more so, do you think that the Constitution still has credibility when we have leaders who don't necessarily act in accordance with it?
So our people don't eat the anthem and the Constitution. Because if we are not intellectually honest, we'll continue to be in this self-perpetuating vicious cycle of abject poverty. So I'll start with the end in mind and then come back here for a second. So what type of leadership should we be choosing for this year? Because it's a local government election. In another 2 years, it will be national elections. No more than just 6 things. Number one, it should be those leaders that help us to root out and defeat state capture. Because it doesn't matter what we do, when you steal 1.5 trillion in 5 years, it doesn't matter what you do, it's difficult to catch up. But it's called the political economy because politics have a disproportionate influence on what we do. If the politics are fraud, business is fraud. 2, we also must demand leaders that will complete the unfinished work of transformation, even though it's less sexy to talk about, for 2 reasons. Because if these blacks don't have anything to lose, they'll ban the only library that serves the 2 towns. This economy must be broadly reflective of the demographics. And the demographics are easy. I mean, 65 million South Africans, 52.5% of them don't look like me, are female, and yet women's representation in positions of leadership is less than 24%. African women, less than 4%. The third, we need ethical leadership. You see, ethics are both prescribed and proscribed. My grandmother says ethics, it's what you do not say when no one is watching. The fourth is good governance. The lawyers among us will tell us that cooperative governance is the separation of ownership from control. But good governance does not steal from the mouths of the babies, the sick, and the dying, like we witnessed during COVID-19. The penultimate one is service delivery, because that's the job description of somebody who chooses to be a public servant. The definition is in the name. If I say public protector, it's very clear who she is meant to be protecting. So a public servant forgoes the Bentley. The Toyota Yaris, it's okay. That's what you chose, because the best amongst us lead with the heart of a servant. Servant leadership is not a leader with many servants. The last one is law and order, safety and security. Because South Africans are not safe walking on the streets. I can almost understand because they are exposed. But South Africans are not safe sleeping in their own homes, 6-foot walls, 220 volts of electric fence, because it's the contact crimes that are increasing.
Thank you so much, Prof. And you said now that a servant leader is not a person with many servants. And I think that when we think about our leadership in this day and age, that's something that we struggle with. But before I get ahead of myself, I want to open up the questions to the floor. So what we're going to be doing is we have 3 sections. So we're going to be taking 3 questions for this round. And then after that, we'll see how far we get. So if anyone has any questions, you can raise your hand. I see, Matt, we've got a question over there. We have a question there, and then we have a question there.
Tell them to be kind on me.
Yes, please be kind. Perfect. So if you can just maybe stand up if you're able to, so we can see you.
Thank you. Greetings, Molweni, Goeienaand. My name is Avuzwakana. I'm a student leader and a member of civil society at large. Firstly, I want to say thank you to Prof. Mohale for such an insightful and thought-provoking address. My question, per se, currently in Stellenbosch University, the workers, the cleaners, the groundskeeping staff have an ongoing system of struggles, per se. Outsourced workers in the university are currently mobilizing for insourcing, improved working conditions, wage disparities, and limited access to institutional benefits. Under your leadership, Prof. Mohale, especially at the University of Free State, and also as a serving member of Bidvest, which is one of the service providers to the university, so currently, we understand that University of the Free State and Stellenbosch University, it's a university that has been built on these old colonial frameworks of systemic exclusion and so and so. So what has the University of Free State implemented to address the issue of insourcing and outsourcing? As we know, it's been a conversation since Fees Must Fall opened Stellenbosch. What has the University of Free State, what have they done to implement concrete policies or frameworks to address the issue towards insourcing? And if so, how has that impacted the material conditions of working class employees? If not, what is the rationale and how do you reconcile that with the growing demand for labor justice within South African universities? Thank you.
My boss says I can talk now instead of taking all three. So universities are a microcosm of a bigger society. Our problems are much bigger than insourcing or outsourcing. So what we try to do as youngsters who are temporary occupants of the corridors of power of these institutions is to bring about a few things. One, can we bring about an inclusive academic excellence? Two, can we bring a social justice approach in the assessment of this thing called merit? Three, can we have a contextual academic freedom? Freedom it is. But in Africa, we have our own framework of freedom. I've got a driver, his name is Mazamban, but he's my uncle. I don't bellow out instructions to him. I ask him like an uncle to take me somewhere. Four, can we build ethical frameworks in the way we conduct ourselves as an institution of higher learning? It's bad enough that the Vice Chancellor of the University of Fort Hare walks around not with one, but 6 bodyguards. Because the hyenas and the vultures are circling. The penultimate one, bring about public ownership of these institutions where the public are both the beneficiaries, but the co-crafters and the co-creators of where these institutions need to take us to tomorrow. Lastly, we need sustainable finance models. Because 32 years into democracy, a study done 2022 by CSIR says at that time 1.2 million students in the 26 public universities. For now, I'll exclude the 50 TVET colleges because that is a subject of a new conversation. Collectively, if we were to educate all of them on a fee-free basis, it would cost us 50 billion. But if we looked at only those who qualify, a combined household income of 350,000 per annum, it will cost us only 20 billion. But there's a small problem. This notion of historical debt, they put it at 16.5 billion, 9.2 billion of which is irrecoverable. Same year, 100,000 students completed their studies, but were not able to graduate because they owe money to these institutions. So how to make them reclaim their self-worth and self-respect and deal with issues of mental health and period poverty. And yet if business wanted to, they could wipe this off in just 1 year if you do the arithmetic. But let me end on Bidvest because he's provocative. So the Bidvest Group Limited is led by an amazing warrior of a woman. Her name is Nompumelelo Tembekile Madisa, the first woman to lead this 38-year-old proudly South African institution. Takes it over about 5 years ago, 6th financial result. She's taken us to 7 countries in just 2 years. We are now in 7 countries, including being in North America for the first time in the history of this institution. When you compare the results from 2016 to now, she's quadrupled it. She's the first to declare the biggest ever dividend in the history of this country. She's the first to breach the 100 billion trading profit mark in 2023 at 123 billion with a trading profit of 11.4 billion. Today, it's 127 billion with a trading profit of 12 billion. It puts this company at number 34 of the 40 biggest companies listed on the JSE. She employs 127,000 people, 7 divisions, owns 350 companies. 250 of them are not small. Let me just tell you about 5. The Bidvest Bank, the Bidvest McCarthy Group, Prestige, Steiner, but also Adcock Ingram. But this is why I was telling you this story. She does this with a board that is 80% black and 73% African women. So you can have both transformation and embarrassingly good results.
Thank you so much. All right, so I do know that we had 2 more hands. I'm going to ask you to please keep your questions concise so that we can make sure we have as much time as possible. So there's a hand over there, and then we have that gentleman over there.
Hello, sorry. My name is Tariro. Thank you so much, Prof, for your lecture. One of the things that stood out to me when you spoke was how now is the time where Africa must play an active role in deciding what happens to her. And what I thought about was, I might stand to be corrected, but I think in the World Economic Forum in Feb or Jan this year, there was a comment made about how countries must figure out whether they have a seat at the table or they're on the menu. And the thinking was obviously African countries was like the point we all looked to. So my question is a 2-parter kind of. The first is, what are your opinions about that? Africa being told that they are on the menu rather than sat at the table, and what practical ways can they actually have a seat at the table, especially given that, if I'm not wrong, South Africa is the only country that has voting rights within the United Nations. And then the second part is, if we assume that, let's say, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is a way for them to be at the table, how practical is that for all African countries, especially given that some will have more advantages within the trade agreements compared to others? So yeah, thank you.
They're cheating. 3 questions right there. So, first, I think let's just admit that the Organization of African Unity was a dismal failure. That's why they even changed the name to the AU. And it continues with that failing streak. One, because we are married to our borders. The borders we didn't create. 27th of April, 1885. On the 140th day at the Berlin Conference. The Europeans wake up and say, but why are we fighting in Africa? We want the same things. So let's sit around the table and divvy it up nicely. That's how we came up then with 53 African countries. Now there's 55. God forbid when we now we respect the borders we were not part of. Some of these countries will never be economically viable. Eswatini, Lesotho, Gambia, it doesn't have enough people. But that, when you Google it, is called the scramble for Africa. South Africa also has not learned from the mistake done by the rest of the continent. Just 3 things. One, that these Uhuru presidents that stand in power for 50 years are not good for Africans. We just elected a 92-year-old into power. I mean, what more can you do at 92? 2, that even the good guys left on their own for far too long eventually become the bad guys. Thirdly, that we need a viable democracy just to keep the good guys in check. But your second part of the question, and I combine it with the third, is that we are failing to fundamentally have a full appreciation of why is it that Africa is poor. The same way that we fail to understand why in South Africa, 32 years into democracy, it's impossible for black people to save. So I start with the continent. The very first is to say, and let me use South Africa to be specific, So 1910, the Union of South Africa, and it excludes Africans from voting. That's why the ANC is formed in 1912. But Great Britain says, but why should we, when we are faced with this conundrum of the African elites who are better farmers than the white male Afrikaners, who do we want to leave this country to? So they go to a corner and they say, 3 things are important to us. Number 1, we want a crucible of cheap labor forever. 32 years, we are still a crucible of cheap labor. We haven't changed that. The system. 2, they can go to the belly of the earth and risk it all. And when they find this gold, we'll have the first right of refusal. 3rd, scratch around, especially around riverbeds, find a diamond or 2, but we will determine the price. Hence the creation of London Sales Organization. It doesn't happen with any other commodity except diamonds. Can you imagine for a moment, you plant your own tomatoes in your own backyard. You water them, you talk to them, you harvest them. And you stand by the side of the road and a taxi driver screeches to a halt and says, oh, these big red ones, I'll tell you what price I'm prepared to pay. And we haven't changed that. To an extent that we haven't changed that, it means we are passive recipients. And the same with South Africa. Why it's almost impossible for us to save. So apartheid spatial planning was very intentional. These blacks must be 40 kilometers away from their places of work. In Polokwane, in Mankweng, on Saturday at 1 o'clock, the alarm will ring. Blacks out. At 10 minutes past, if you're still there, you got arrested, you slept in prison. The court only opened on Monday. But the economic effect of that is that because you live 40 kilometers away from your place of work, it takes you on average 40 minutes one way and 40 minutes to come back. Gobbling up almost 40% of your monthly wage is gone, poof, just on transport. If you add food at 70%, so it means our parents only had 30% to educate us and to buy shoes for us. How could you save? Now, the saving theory says, do it early, is this notion of compound interest. Even today, I work, I get paid well. Apart from looking after my parents, I've got 6 other siblings. So it's my job that when one wants to go to UJ, they need 600 rand for registry. It's my job, it's not black tax. So let me end by saying, now we have an opportunity to build a new city. It's called Cosmo City in Gauteng, Joburg. Guess what we do? We still put it 40 kilometers away from their places of work. Because you see, you have to love your people to lead them. When your model of what you wish for your people is where you come from, you can't wish best for your people. That's why we build schools where up until today, they don't even have this thing that we used to call the grandstand, where you can just sit in the shade and watch your kids play. We still build schools like the ones we inherited in Qunu, Langanyanga, Mondlo, and Guguletu. Isn't it amazing that those teachers who have high expectations of their pupils always do well?
Thank you so much, Prof. I'm not sure where my timekeeper is. I chose to not wear my watch today because it didn't match my outfit, so I wasn't able to keep time. But I am going to take one more hand, and then I would like to encourage you to speak to Prof after this if you do have any more questions.
Good evening. My name's Sean. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Professor, welcome. Your speech was very provocative. I'm just coming in from a slightly different angle on the University Council governance in higher education. It's been very controversial, like at UCT and several other campuses. The governance is not good. Either that or the governance is implementing certain policies which are at odds with the alumni. The other point that you as a businessman could also come into and give us a little bit of advice on is coming back from your day in school and my day, we had a different education system. Today we have something called maths literature, maths literacy, and we have higher grade maths. Now the government's been fiddling and playing with various decisions on whether to do away with this maths literacy and just to maintain higher grade maths. Certain universities, the academics entrance for science has always been, if I'm not mistaken, higher grade. But now, what is the situation and what is the recipe for a successful university from your side? I'd love to hear your input, and thanks once again for your wonderful and interesting talk. So much information, I think I'm going to have to listen to the podcast. Thank you.
You're very kind. So I commit that you didn't serve me lunch, so I'll eat with them. During eating, then I can answer some of the questions. So governance of a university, governance of the more than 734 state-owned enterprises and state-owned companies, governance of the 400 companies listed on the JSE by 2010, now 298. I exclude all tax. As South Africans, we like overcomplicating things. Governance is governance. Leadership can't be anything else other than ethical. So to say ethical leadership is tautologous. If we took the Companies Act only and say it applies to all entities, private and public, NGOs, big or small, it would have made our life much easier. But no, as South Africans, we have the Companies Act mostly for private sector companies. Then we took that act. Then for public servants, we called it the Public Finance Management Act. Yeah, no, it goes to local government. But the fundamental principles are the same. So governance of institutions of higher learning should not be any difference. Good governance is good governance. If you are a good leader and you manage a company that sells cars or bums on seats on an airline or potato chips, the fundamental principles are exactly the same. If I had time, I would be more controversial to say, when you are a salesperson, you know the art of selling. It's a system. And you can sell anything because you follow that system. But for some reason, we now use up this leadership calling. And we want to spread it amongst all of us. I did MBBCH at Wits. So some of my best friends are clinicians. But a clinician will never be a good hospital administrator. Your job is not to run a hospital. A hospital is a system. It's procurement, it's outsourcing, it's insourcing. People come into your office, they burst into tears. And you know pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics. And you're supposed to run a successful hospital. Put differently, we don't send botanists after drug laws. We send career police people. They know the law, they know what you have done wrong, they come and get you. They don't need to know the chemical composition of cocaine from marijuana. So, I close. The one thing we haven't done well as a continent, and I'll come back to South Africa because I like being specific, will be the only African country that has ever become free of colonialism, and we didn't do these three things. Number one, to exponentially increase the educational level of our own indigenous people. Even Gabriel Robert Mugabe's Zimbabwe freed 10 years later, they had an 80% literacy rate. At what stage did we say 30% is an acceptable pass mark? Who are we fooling? Two, we'll be the only African country that has ever become free from colonialism, and we didn't increase the ownership of the economy by at least double digit by the indigenous people. Nigeria's business is owned by Nigerians. Zimbabwe business is owned by Zimbabweans. Except here in South Africa, you walk into a boardroom, you'll think you're in Europe. Lastly, we're the only country in Africa to be free from colonialism. After 30 years, we voluntarily hand over power to the colonizers, oppressors, and racists. Everywhere else in the world, no white person has ever given up privilege voluntarily. Put differently, the duration of oppression is never determined by the oppressor. It's always determined by the oppressed.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. And just in closing, I asked Prof what are 3 things he wants everyone to take away as a young person. The first one was be happy with yourself. The second one was build intimate, important relationships with other people. And the third one was everything in moderation. Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you, Prof. You are not done. We are not going to let you off the hook. So we are going to invite you back to the stage, and together with our rector, please, to make it official that you are always going to be connected with the Frederik van Zyl Slabbert Institute. It is now official that I declare Professor Benang Francis Mohali an honorary member of the Frederik van Zyl Slabbert Institute.
Thanks a lot, Nobi. That was really insightful. I don't know if some of you may have noticed that when you filled in the form to RSVP this evening, there were a few questions at the bottom of that form, and if you answered those questions, your name would be put into like a raffle or a draw. So we were going to draw it here, but it was going to take a little bit too much time, so we've already drawn the names, and we're just going to announce them. Before that, there's an important announcement. If any of you win the book and you don't want it, there's a book nerd in need in the shape of me that would love another book in their bookshelf. So donations are welcome. But anyway, let me announce the names. Vuyile Tsetswa, Ayabonga Metuso, Dylan Lee, Craig Galloway, Kecha Mbinji, Lwandisile Mtlanga, Onela Mary, Luzuko Mdun Yelwa, Oliver Rupel, Magda Fari Malhaba, Nukulunga, Ayanda Shangane. Maxine we had to replace because we didn't want to look like there was corruption, so we replaced it with, no, please let me like a note on the side there. So it's Anas Kutsia replaces Maxine, Notsipo Ngaleni, Catherine Grammer, and then Karabo Dinalelo. So, but all the names are on there. Well, congratulations to everyone who won. So, of course, tonight we also celebrate the FVZS Institute on their 15th birthday. For 15 years, they have equipped students to be effective leaders and engaged citizens, and without a doubt, SU is better because we have this institute. One thing that COVID-19 has taught us is that we can have all these grand organizations and elaborate institutes. However, it all means nothing without the people who drive them. Similarly, the FVZS is nothing without its people, both staff and students. However, particularly, I want to focus on the students who over the years have been a part of the FVZS's story. They've put in an immense amount of time and effort, even after long hours of study and classes, in order to ensure that all students at SU are prepared to lead SA into a bright future. And many of them I am proud to call colleagues. Thank you for going above and beyond. We are immensely grateful for you and your sacrifice. Could we please give them a round of applause? Now, I invite all of us to go down on a trip of memory lane as we reminisce about 15 years of leadership excellence.
Dr. Frederick Finzel Slabbert embodied the values of a democratic South Africa before those values were implemented and then protected by law. He fought for equality, dignity, and a shared future, and used his influence to dismantle the oppressive and discriminatory structural systems of the apartheid regime. Frederick Finzel Slabbert grew up in Pietersburg, Pretoria, with a love for rugby and cricket. He continued his studies at the University of Stellenbosch, and in 1967 he obtained a doctorate in sociology. He used the knowledge he obtained from his alma mater to challenge the laws of the National Party during apartheid.
That constitution must allow for full citizenship, irrespective of race and no domination.
Irrespective of race and no domination. In 1979, his vision of a free and democratic South Africa propelled him to become the leader of the Progressive Party. However, after realizing that he would need more than just the voice in Parliament, he left his party in 1986. The following year, he, along with the Institute of Democratic Alternatives in South Africa, organized the Dakar Conference, a historic event where South Africans who were in exile in academia, politics, and the arts came together in solidarity against the apartheid regime.
There is a sadness that we have to meet so far from our common fatherland. This in itself is a tragic commentary on the history we share. Some of you have traveled far and suffered much pursuing freedom for your country. And despite whatever differences there may be, we have come to talk to you because we realize your critical role in finding a resolution to our tragedy.
At Stellenbosch University, his residence involvement began early. During his student years, he was the first residence head of Mayuba Men's Residence, and later, after returning to Stellenbosch in 1970, he took up a role that shaped him in a deeply reflective and formative way. As a senior lecturer and residence head of Simmonsburg Residence. In that space, leadership was not a title. It was a daily practice, listening, guiding, challenging young minds, and insisting that privilege must carry responsibility, because the future of a country is often rehearsed first in the character of its students. In 1964, Slabbert received the A. Bailey Travel Bursary to visit the United Kingdom, an early marker of how seriously he took exposure, service, and leadership development beyond the familiar. That same thread continues decades later through the FVZS Institute's ongoing relationship with the A. Bailey Trust. On the 12th of May 2008, Dr. Finzel Slabbert became the Chancellor of Stellenbosch University, where he held this position until he passed away on the 14th of May 2010. Gone, but never forgotten. His legacy lives on through the founding of the Frederick Van Zyl Slabbert Institute in March 2011. Over the past 15 years, this institute has equipped students with the leadership abilities to follow in his footsteps, embodying responsible, engaged citizenship. This institute has a far-reaching impact and continues to make an impact nationally and globally through its programs. In collaboration with student leaders in governance structures, commuter and residence leaders, through experiential learning, striving to inspire and equip responsible citizen leaders. Van Zyl Slabbert was indeed a man on a mission with a calling which led him to speak up and fight against injustice.
Why can one call Van Zyl Slabbert a man on a mission? The short answer to that will be when he went into Parliament in 1974 for the Progressive Federal Party, he queried the notion that apartheid could work. And he insisted that the National Party at the time, that they address these issues and not try and skirt around them.
After his death, the Institute continues to pursue his mission and embodies his ethos, building courageous, engaged citizens for a changing South Africa. But how do these programs impact student leaders across South Africa to become citizen leaders?
Having had the privilege of partaking in multiple FVZS offerings in my undergrad and in my student leadership experience gave me a holistic development. It made me more confident, and that confidence allowed me to achieve scholarships, early career success, and mostly a contribution to my society, for which I'm forever indebted to the FVZS. This institute has been pivotal in many students, my peers, students to come, and greatly the society at large.
My time at FVZS has been nothing but remarkable. One of the foundations that I was taught there is that I belong. I belong in spaces that was never meant for me, or never meant for me to occupy. But I stand here today because this is where you learn and grow. Stellenbosch University has provided the space for students like you and I, students who come from various backgrounds, to come together and feel a sense of responsibility, a shared responsibility at that.
What the FVZS Institute does for you is a kind of way of structuring how you approach difficult conversations. And that teaches you one of the most important skills that any young leader can learn, and that is to engage with people.
Because I'm a critical thinker and as someone who describes themselves as such, it is imperative for me to expose myself to other critical thinkers and also absorb their thinking so that I can also apply it to my own thinking.
So 15 years ago, this wonderful, wonderful Leadership Institute started, and I remember it vividly. The former Chancellor, very sadly, had to retire. Very shortly thereafter passed, and Stellenbosch University looked for a wonderful, wonderful new way to acknowledge and celebrate the life and legacy of Van Zyl Slabbert. The second pillar was, of course, the fact that we were in the middle of the Hope Project. The late Prof. Russell Botman started an initiative at this university that allowed us to focus our science on society. And then thirdly, we had an opportunity to rethink student leadership development. What is it that we wanted to do? How did we want to focus our work? And who did we regard as leaders on our campus? And in a wonderful way, these three initiatives came together.
So 15 years later, we are proud to be associated with a growing leadership community across the globe, with youth leaders who are truly making their mark in different sectors of our society. Our student leaders over the year, together with subject matter experts across different disciplines, have embarked on a journey to unpack the context of the African perspective and that relationship with leadership, Secondly, how our born-free student leaders truly contribute to the democracy of our country post-1994. And thirdly, if we say that we are developing the graduate attributes here at Stellenbosch University, how does this institute, together with all our higher education partners in South Africa, positively influence the social dynamics of our country? 15 years later, we have evolved with programs and meaningful partnerships from Stellenbosch University's SU Leads to expanding the leadership pipeline through the Leadership Summit for Aspiring Leaders, to launching Marty's Lead, our largest multi-phase integrated program for all our student governance structures, from public discourses, podcasts, academic think tanks, to hosting the first international youth think tank in Africa in collaboration with the International Youth Think Tank and the Norwegian Nobel Institute. 2026, our celebratory year, taking it all the way back to the late Dr. Van Zyl Slabbert's footprints that he left in Dakar. Please join us as the Institute will be hosting the African Youth Summit in collaboration with the UNESCO Chair on Intercultural Competences later this year in Dakar, bringing together youth leaders across the globe to explore intercultural citizenship. So 15 years later, the question is not if Van Zyl Slabbert legacy lives on. It's evident through the work and the growing footprint of the thousands of student leaders who still have a very strong connection with our institute. Thank you to all our partners and every single student leader who have opened themselves up to the beautiful, vulnerable process of exploring your leadership identity. Thank you for your growing participation. Your contribution keeps the Constitution alive.
For those of us who are not known to get emotional, I think there is a license tonight. I want us to give every single person who has ever been part of the FVZS Institute as a team member over the past 15 years a round of applause. The challenging part of ensuring that an institution which is highly relational and completely functioning around relational leadership and building strong relations with organizations and our donors and our sponsors and our students and all our stakeholders. The big challenge of that is during the foundational phase led by my predecessor, Dr. Leslie van Rooy, we had to ensure that we keep on building, progressing every year and making sure that we evolve every single year. And I want to thank each one of our students, our student leaders, our scholars, and every single fellow who have over the years became donors of time, talent, and skills. Our team members, when you do join the Institute, you bring with you friends and family, and for that reason, we will always greet you as friends of the Frederik van Zyl Slabbert Institute. Tonight, we are also launching an exciting new campaign. So we are going to Dakar, and we've got some bold challenges that we've set out for ourselves. I'd like to share that at this stage, we have 15 champions that we've identified. The challenge is as follows. We want to collectively walk, hike, and run 10,000 kilometers by mid-September, and that's doable. So what do we need from you? We need you to download the Strava app on your cell phone. So whether you've done a Camino, whether you have just started to walk, we are inviting all of you to join us on Strava to collectively reach 10,000 kilometers. By the way, that is roughly estimate from Cape Town to Dakar. That's step one. Step two is We've launched a Give and Gain page thanks to the collaboration and support of our Development and Alumni Relations Office. We've got 15 champions, and each one of us, including myself as a champion, we want to raise 150,000 Rand, which is not a lot. I'm sure we can do that. The goal is to take 10 Stellenbosch University students to join us in Dakar for the African Youth Summit. We also want to challenge each one of our higher education partners in South Africa and our global partners and continental partners to at least bring 3 to 5 students to the Dakar conference. We're very grateful for the support of the UNESCO Chair for Intercultural Competence, who is also one of our champions, Dr. Dala Deerdorf. So thank you to each one of the champions, to our alumni, and especially our former team members who are also participating in this wonderful project, including our SRC chairperson of the Chairperson's Council for the SRCs over the last couple of years. So there's a wide range of meaningful relationships that have been built as a network and spread as a network over time, and for that we are truly grateful for. So please join us in Dakar. Thank you.
The success of an institute such as this one is thanks to many stakeholders and partner organizations. However, tonight we do want to thank one organization in particular for their incredible support of the FVZS Institute, and that is the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. They have sponsored this honorary lecture since its inception and have really helped it come to life. We are very grateful for their generosity and friendship over many years. I would like to welcome Mr. Christian Endres, the project manager of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, to give a few remarks.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, distinguished guests, participants online and in person. Vice Chancellor, thank you very much. Our guest speaker, Prof. Bonang, thank you so much. Family of Frederick van Zyl Slabbert, it is always an honor to be with you in this venue to this very important topic of the values of Frederick van Zyl Slabbert and reinvigorating his ideas as we move forward. So as mentioned, my name is Christian Endres, and I'm a project manager with the Konrad Adenauer Foundation in South Africa. And I'm standing here representing the resident representative, Gregor Yeke, who's not available tonight. I presume that he's watching online, but that's beside the point. The Konrad Adenauer Foundation comes back year after year to support this event because it embodies exactly what democracies require. Democracies require space. What could that mean? Space to dialogue, space to come together. So I noted earlier on a couple of words from the previous speaker, mentioning Frederick van Zyl Slabbert, focus on being a bridge builder, the importance of dialogue to rebuild society, the importance of partnership, the importance of fostering trust. These are exactly the kind of spaces that we're in right now that make democracy possible. Because democracy is not, as was mentioned, an institution. It's not something that's on paper. It's not something that you refer to in an academic journal as a concept. No, it's something that we practice. And there's this lovely little quote here, "Democracy must be lived," by Konrad Adenauer. And it was exactly this idea where he said democracy is something about an individual. It's about each of us rather than about something that happens up there or out there. And in this, Konrad Adenauer and Frederick van Zyl Slabbert really meet each other. This idea of the importance of the individual coming together with other individuals to talk it out. Right. Some of you may know already that we're a political foundation from Germany, and that we're associated with a political party there, the CDU, which is also the party of Friedrich Merz, who is the current head of government there. And we promote democracy internationally in over 130 countries. And the idea is to make sure that dialogue happens between politicians, between academics, between civil society. And one of the things that concerns us most, and our partners here at Stellenbosch University, like at the Center for Research and Democracy, where are you? Prof. van Beek, can I see you? No, I can't see the hand. Right, there she is. Hello. So one of the things that concerns us most is that through the rise of populism, we are seeing retreat of the idea of what democracy is actually about. And this was the bit that I found most exciting about your speech, Bonang, tonight. This point is that democracy is not the solution that will solve all your problems, right? A populist is a politician who comes to you and says, the roads are broken, I will fix them, right? There is too much femicide, we will stop it. That's the language of populism. The language of a Democrat instead is one that is sometimes difficult. It says, things are complicated. We need to think about this. We need to dialogue. We need to plan. This is incredibly hard to put onto a poster and to get people to vote for. So I really want to underline again to all of us that we need to, in some ways, grow up when it comes to politics and accept that things are difficult and tricky and complicated. And if anybody says they're not complicated and can be solved with a slogan, hamba. You're on the wrong track. Another item that I really enjoyed was your stress on the rule of law. It's the rules of engagement that allow us to actually live together as a society. We have this fantastic constitution, as you mentioned, in South Africa, and it's almost become something that everybody just cites rather than really recognizing what an extraordinary document it is. And it's extraordinary not just because of the principles that are contained in it, but because of the process by which it was written. Now, there are voices in our society who are trying to discredit our constitution by saying it was a sellout process. Now, having spoken to enough people who were there, I think rather what should be understood is that the people who negotiated the constitution were in desperate, desperate opposition with one another. And through intense dialogue, stopping talking, starting again, we need to find a solution. That's why that document became so good. It was because the opposition was so intense and the dialogue so honest. And unfortunately, I don't remember the source of this now, but recently there was a quote around Mandela and de Klerk sitting together and saying, we may disagree, but we both agree that we have a responsibility for the child that is South Africa. That is the principle at the heart of the Constitution. And so I think it is correct for all of us to really recognize that the Constitution is something that we should defend actively in the words that we use with each other, but also by going out and voting for parties that stand for the Constitution, and rejecting parties that say that the Constitution was in fact a sellout process and is not good for us and our people. So, to conclude, Prof. Bonang Mohale, it is an incredible honor to be in the same space with you, to listen to your words, and I look forward to watching the recording to pass out the many, many, many ideas that you gave us along our road tonight. I look forward to meeting you outside, unfortunately not the people online, but the people who are here, and to think more about the many messages you left with us. Thank you so much, and good night.
We'll now move on to the last item in the program. And it is my great pleasure to welcome up a man who has dedicated most, if not all of his professional life to helping students thrive at Stellenbosch University. He is a man who has been blessed with immense wisdom and the ability to make every student feel seen and valued, thereby bringing out the best in them. Dr. Leslie van Roy is currently the Acting Dean of Students, but he was also Dr. October's predecessor as head of the FVZS Institute and played an enormous role in laying the foundation for the FVZS's success. Dr. van Roy, it is a pleasure to welcome you to give the closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Liam. The wisdom part I really don't know about, but thank you. I know that in this country to say we have a family gathering or a family meeting brings back strange memories. But I must say this does feel like a very good family gathering, and it does so annually. Heidi, and it is good to see some familiar faces. I was quite surprised to see some of the faces earlier, very happy to see you. And I hope that we can interact later on in the evening still. But my role is to say thank you, and I want to start off by thanking our Rector and Vice-Chancellor for the fact that you hold this process, hold the Institute, and in that sense also Student Affairs. I do think we are honored not only by your presence, but by your continuous role, Prof. Teresh, in the process. There are a couple of members, quite a number of members from the Rectorate here this evening. I saw Prof. Nicola earlier, Dr. Latif, Prof. Nico, I think, was here, Prof. Stevens, quite a number of colleagues. I see some of our deans, vice deans. Phenomenal that you can be here this evening. Professor Fourie Malherbe, I really want to say a very personal word of thank you to you. It's not that you were just vice rector when the institute was formed, it's that you gave the idea that this is a fitting way to honor Van Zyl Slabbert, and we must honor you for your impact in that regard. Rico and Tanya, welcome terug. It's phenomenal to have you back. Teresh is correct, you were online last year, messaged me constantly about the speech. Very, very good to have you back in person, and I really look forward to a phenomenal year. I understand from Heidi that you will journey with us in this, what I hope will be a memorable year for our students and for colleagues. I want to acknowledge, as I acknowledge you, friends, family, relatives, some I saw on the screen. Jane Slabbert, of course, Rudolf Gous, who passed away last year, Breiten Breitenbach, Russell Botman, number of other friends who made sure that the Institute is what it is. Magda, I think you'll remember Rudolph's speech on the evening that we launched the Institute in this venue. The Institute is just not possible and cannot be possible without sponsors and donors. And this evening I would like to thank Prof. Elty Links. I didn't see him here. Prof. Elty, if not, thank you very much to you and the A. Bailey Trust for your continuous support. I see, Liam, you have your A. Bailey tie on. I can see so. It's phenomenal that they've been one of the donors for the Institute actually from the evening that we launched the Institute. The very same for the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. The fact that you remain a partner for this lecture is significant, and I do hope that we will have a long and fruitful journey over the years to come. There are new partners and donors. Jones St. Ledger, Linford, a trust that sponsors the master classes and has done so over the last 2 years. The Institute has always been made up of individuals who free up time, give up something of your own personal time to invest in the possibilities of students, and a number of you are here. Heidi and the team would really like to thank everyone involved in the short courses, the development, the planning, the execution. It is a team effort like none, and we really do not want to do it without the subject experts and other colleagues involved. Over the years, the higher education partners have increased, Heidi. We have a prime example here this evening, but also a variety of other educational partners, universities, TVETs, etc., locally and further. The collaboration means that we add to the possibilities of the students of this university and to the possibilities of fellow South Africans through one another. And that is the nature of the Institute and what we stand for. To my right, you will see the Van Zyl Slabbert collection. And Ellen, I also thought back of the evening that we launched the collection. Thank you very much for the curatorship.
Very nice to see the placard again, Heidi. Ellen ties to you and your team. Thank you very much for holding that safe and for making sure that many, many generations to come will be able to study, understand, see, and reflect on the life and legacy of Van Zyl Slabbert. Henk, the ever-present, you must get one of these certificates, Heidi. Henk has taken photos for almost 15 years. Thank you very much for that. I've had a highly reflective day today, and I see a number of familiar faces here today. I am going to ask some of the alumni, the graduates, participants in our courses over the years, just to stand up. I want to see who is here. Sorry, Heidi. Would you mind standing? It's not a good time to be shy. Phenomenal to see some of the faces here. Some travel between the Netherlands and South Africa more often than what I would like. Some became professors. I didn't see Craig Galloway here this evening, but his name was on the board, if he is here. Oh, he's online. Craig, next time be here in person. It'll be very good to see you. Thank you for your contribution. And I hope that the year will also bring something of a togetherness through the experiences that we've had over many, many years. And thank you for the fact that you continue to invest not only in your classes, in the students that you engage with, but also in my life. I must say thank you for that. There are a number of champions. More will become champions in this year. I really want to say thank you. I think it's a wonderful initiative to have the Long Walk to Dakar campaign, and I hope to see familiar faces back in Dakar. Skimp, skimp. I do hope that it can be a good journey back. Lastly, to Heidi and your team, Pieter Kloppers, Gareth Cornelissen, the Center for Student Life and Learning, thank you for holding the Institute. Thank you for guiding its possibilities, and Heidi in particular to you for making sure that it remains not only one of the stellar positions and roles and impactful platforms at the university, but also that you remain steadfast to the legacy of the person that we miss and cherish and hope to learn from still for many generations to come. Thank you very much.
My final role is just to thank all of you for being here. Thank you for your time. I'll release you to have cocktail with the cocktail function, some wine and food. I also just want to remind you about the exhibition. Please make sure that you go visit that. And then also all the current FVZS team members, please come to the front for a group photo. Awesome. Oh, current and previous. So everyone, we're going to have a big photo. Thank you, everyone.